Welcome everyone to the Advanced Diploma of Leadership webinar. And today we're going to start with a unit called Develop and Implement Diversity Policy. Welcome, let's begin. And as we get into it, we'll get to know each other. And it is quite an interesting topic. And so the first things I'll say that you need to have as we go into this diversity, which I'm going to share with you, is have your LMS open and have your unit assessment open so that you can derive the best benefits out of this session. So, diversity. When you talk of diversity, a lot of people begin to think of many things that come to their mind, and we'll get into find out what is diversity, how does it work, how does it affect the workplace environment, why should we have diversity, and why is it important, and what happens if you ignore it? Is it something an organization can afford to ignore? We'll look through that. Let's go through and find out how we're going to start this. So today, the purpose of today is I'm going to break down this unit into smaller chunks, into areas that you can actually be able to digest it. And I'm going to try to be as slow as I can. I don't want to confuse you. I don't want to move so fast, because for some of you, it's the first time you're watching a webinar. And you're very much welcome, and I would also like to give us our feedback at the end of this session. So yeah, let's go and see how will this session run. Now in this session, I will, to start with, explain to you what diversity is, and then we'll go into the case study that is presented here. And this is the case study that you need to work on. And then the third thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the actual questions. What are you meant to do? How are you meant to answer this? And during the course of the webinar, I will also look at some of the examples of diversity policies that other companies and banks have put out there and are implementing. And so come along with me as we begin this session, and we can all have fun. So the first place I'm going to take you to is to the questions, to the assessment question. So let's begin this in share, and we go to the assessment question that we have. All right, so in this assessment question, let's see, I'm going to share with you, and there we go. So assessment task 1, the business case for diversity. What are we saying by business case for diversity? What we are saying is, in an organization, before a policy is implemented, people got to look at the merits of, do we really need to have this policy in the organization? And what has brought about the thought and the thinking of having this policy? How will it work? How will it be implemented? What are the benefits? You look at the pros and cons of having it, and also look outside the box and say, who else has implemented this and how have they done it? What's been the success rate? And for whatever policy that an organization implements, they're going to say, how are they going to monitor it to make sure it's working well? Yes, so let's look at this business case. So I'm just going to read with you so that we both have a background of what we are talking about. Here we go. So 6 months ago, you joined a small community bank as the operations manager, reporting directly to the CEO and providing the board of directors with the details of the projects that have an impact on the bank meeting compliance requirements. So the bank has branches in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, and plans to extend to ACT and Western Australia. So the bank has yet to develop formal procedures for the management of the workplace harassment incidents. Each set manager has managed these on an ad hoc basis as they arise. The bank has a goal to develop consistent policies and procedures for all people-related functions in the coming 12 months. In reviewing the recent quarterly customer service feedback, you notice a trend in the feedback that highlights customers-facing staff are not representing the diversity of the bank's clients. There you go. That's the key now. What's the key here? It has been noticed and it has come to their attention of the management that, hey, our customers are not represented in our employee structure. What are they saying? The employees that are actually at the forefront, the frontline people of the bank that come into contact with the customers are not representative of that population, of that ratio of the people that live in the community, of their clientele. So if you continue reading, it says, when you look at the recruitment statistics, you see that the pattern of recruitment over the last 2 to 3 years has resulted in 70% of the customers facing clients are males, and 50% of those are between the ages of 25 to 34. Over 80% of our clients are females over the age of 50 who prefer the face-to-face service of a bank rather than using technology. Interesting dilemma that you got. So now, but what's the bank going to do about it? Here's what they're going to do. And this is what you are required to do. Identify the stakeholders the report is distributed to you. So you're going to identify the stakeholders. So there's a template that you're going to have to use. We'll go to the template, and then we're going to outline the current practices. And what's there, and then we're going to explain the benefits of diversity policy, supposed to bring to the organization 2 benefits to the bank. So we're going to look at what are the benefits of the diversity policy to the bank, how the policy links to the business goals. Every business has goals, every business has objectives, every business has what aims and the thing that they've set up to say, this is what we want to achieve. And so whatever policy that is designed or formulated within the organization must align with where the company wants to go. Because these policies are meant to help the organization arrive to their destination, which they have spelled out. And question number 4, we're going to look and say, you're going to describe how 2 major banks in Australia address diversity and describe 2 areas that will be relevant for inclusion in your policy. And request the stakeholders' requirements for the diversity policy. Right, so let's talk about this. So we're going to have to look at the benefits, we're going to have to look at the sample policies, we'll look at, say, how is this going to be implemented and how will it be monitored? So let's go back to our slideshow and take you through the rest of the session. Right, so here we are. Let's now go to, what is diversity? What is diversity? Well, what do we mean when people talk about diversity? As you can see there, we're talking of thinking styles, different thinking styles, different languages, people from different ethnic groups, different faiths, different religions, people of different persuasions, different perspective, experiences. People come from different nationalities, different races, different job levels, cultures, skills, physical abilities, sexual orientation, ages, and gender. So you got all these potpourri of things that make diversity. Some people just think diversity is somebody coming from another country. You could be coming from the same country, but you could be so diversified in your thinking, in your understanding, in your upbringing, so diversified even in the direction of where you want to go, and probably the things that you do on a daily basis. You could even be coming from the same family, but you could have diverse thinking, diverse understanding of what the future means for you, diverse ways of methodologies of doing things. And we need to be able to embrace all these people of different persuasions, people of different goals, because the only common thing that we have, number 1, is we have one purpose and one direction. So irrespective of how some people want to get there, irrespective of how fast they might arrive there, whatever methodologies they use to get there, but really at the end of the day, it's like running a race. It's whatever gets you there is important, right? Yes. Okay. So the variety between peoples is what is called, in an organization, it's called diversity. Diversity encompasses an acceptance and respectful attitude towards people from different groups, different understandings. And it is an understanding of that unique individual that you have, that unique person that probably you might be interviewing and thinking, well, this person doesn't think like me. Maybe this person doesn't have the same experiences as me. Well, that's diversity right out there. Cultural diversity, acknowledges the existence of a broad cultural groups and broad cultural understanding. And there's today called inclusion, the policies of inclusion, where you're going to include people of all ages, people of different disabilities, people of different age groups, young, middle-aged, and old. Both of these people, they have quite a lot to bring to the table if we only let them. So this is what the companies are talking about. Say, this story here, as we saw in the case study, the workers in the bank are not representative of their clientele base. And therefore, what happens there? You get a big gap, because then your clients, they come into your place and they do transactions with you and they do business with you. What if they came and they saw somebody that has the same belief, same understanding as them, somebody that looked like them? Their level of loyalty and their level of acceptance, how do you think they welcome? They obviously feel much more welcome, thinking, wow, you know what? This guy believes the same thing that I believe. This guy comes from the same background that I have, and he's in the bank. That's my bank. Now, they're just not going to say, this is the bank that has my money, but this is my bank, because I'm represented in that bank. It's like when people, you voting for your electoral MP, you say, he is my MP, because I've had input into getting him there. So when you say my bank, because now you can see the bank is being representative of your beliefs, of your understanding, of your goals, of your nature, and of your thinking. So that's diversity. That's what we talk about diversity. And then we're going to look and say, now, what is the advantage of having diversity? It's one of those questions asked, give us some 2 advantages of having diversity. What are the benefits? Increased innovation, increased understanding. Look at companies like Google. Look at companies like Facebook. They have people from all over the world working in their IT department, coding, and look how successful these companies are, because you have people with different experiences, different knowledge, and different culture, and being able to say, from where I come from, we would prefer to see Facebook like this. From where I come from, we would appreciate this in our search engines. And from my understanding, the way I was brought up, this would work well for us. And so what a benefit, the company benefits in incorporating those expectations from different groups into their sales, into their products. And then when those products go out into the marketplace, people can identify those products with what they believe, with what they understand, with their experiences, with their desires and aspirations. And they can say, wow, I'm buying this product. Why? Because it's representative of who I am, representative of what I think, representative of what I truly believe, and who the person that I am. So there you go. And then you find your product, they just move very fast off the shelves, Why? Because there is something in it for everybody. You look at different companies like McDonald's and KFC, and what they've done when they go all over the world, depending on which country they are, and most of their products are aligned and tailor-made to suit the conditions and the beliefs and the culture of those people. So if those people are vegetarians or non-vegetarians, there's a burger, a person can go into the shop and find a burger that meets their cultural values, their cultural understanding. And what happens? Company prospers. It just goes from from greater heights to greater heights, from more profits, and go ever in most of these companies. And so, as a bank in here, now let's say, what are the advantages? Increased participation, increased customer base, increased market share, increased understanding, and increased loyalty. You don't even need to go any further. And so, how do you get to that? So you have to drive a policy. Now, what will your policy look like? Your diversity policy has to start from the recruitment area. You say, okay, when you're now recruiting, what are our recruiting needs? And our training. Now, what do we need to train our people for? So, and what are the things that we need in order to drive really diversity? You might have to say, okay, customer facing stuff. What is our client base? In this case study, 80% of their client base are women. So if you have more women that are your customer base and probably over the age of 50, what are their expectations when they come into your shop? Well, maybe not what their expectations, but what would really make them feel very, very welcome. Seeing another woman on the desk, talking to somebody of their age group, and they just relate. They relate. This is all about business. That's why it is all about diversity, because you want your customers to relate to your company. You want your customers to relate to your products. You want your customers to relate to the experiences that you're having in the bank, and them to know, yes, they get me. Once you get that customer, the customer gets you, and you build a brand that is, people become so loyal. Like look at Apple. Whenever they have a product out there, people go lie on the streets. People sleep outside the Apple shop when they hear there's a new product coming through. So which other companies do people sleep outside the door for days waiting for a new product? I haven't seen any lately, except at Apple. And so you're going to have to find out what is it that they're doing in terms of diversity that they're so succeeding and so successful. And we'll look at some of the examples of those companies. So diversity increases the attraction of your products and increases customer satisfaction, and even your employees get satisfied with, they learn more from each other. And when you look at the different things that diversity brings onto the table in terms of success, what are businesses there? Businesses they want to make profit for their shareholders, maximize profit. And if there's an opportunity to do that in any society, in any particular part of the world, that the business, they want to look at their surroundings and say, what is the environment we are working on? What does this environment say? And so let's look at another slide there. There is Coca-Cola, right? Just going to look at an example of Coca-Cola and say, their diversity. So Coca-Cola tells you from their policy that diversity is at the heart of our business, right? We strive to create a work environment that provides all our associates equal access to information, development, and opportunity. And by building an inclusive workplace environment, we seek to leverage, this is what they seek to do, they seek to leverage, right? And so any organization has to have that policy and their objectives and point out exactly what are the things they need to achieve. So Coca-Cola says, we see diversity as more than just policies and practices. They see it more than that. And they say it is an integral part of who we are as a company, how we operate, and how we see our future. So if you have to design a diversity policy, you've got to have objectives. Say, how do you want the market to see you? How do you want the market to feel when your advert flies on the notice board or comes on the screens, on their television screens? What reaction do you want your customer to feel included in what you do? So some of the benefits that Coca-Cola will derive from such a policy will be, they have groups with greater diversity, have been shown to have greater innovation and creativity. Like I spoke about Google, they've got a very diversified workforce, therefore they have a greater innovation. You can't beat it, look at their creativity. And also, research has shown that diverse groups have a greater range of perspectives and are able to generate more high quality solutions than less diverse groups. That is what makes most of those companies successful, because they're getting a whole range of perspectives, even on the creation code of a pen, creation of the phone. And probably when the iPhone was created, there were different perspectives and views, and not only from different nationalities, different age groups. Older people would have been asked, what do you think? The younger people from within the company would have said, well, this is a thing I would like to carry. Or other groups, might also come in and say, as parents, how would you feel with a phone like this? And how do you feel the touch? Let's improve it. And with people coming from different age groups, different backgrounds, different persuasions, they're able to bring in an input to add value to the product. And research also has shown that diversity increases constructive group processes and is positively associated with performance in business units. Fantastic to know. And diversity is associated with increased sales revenue, greater market share, more customers, and greater profits. This is based on research. I mean, like I was talking to our companies like Apple, companies like Google. Just look at the stock market, look at their figures, read their financial reports, look at Microsoft. And in those companies, they are so well diversified, and their policies are clear. And let's look at the bank, and let's look at some of this, what some of the bank's policies are or look like. Just going to share that with you. Going to have a new share, and let's look at the bank policies. Let's go and look at the example. Let's look at CBA. That's Commonwealth Bank. This is their diversity policy. And they start by saying, what is diversity? So according to the understanding of CBA, workplace diversity refers to the variety of differences between people in an organization. Diversity encompasses acceptance and respect. It is an understanding that each individual is unique and a recognition of our individual differences. These differences can include ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age, and etc. So why is diversity important to the bank? It is seen as an asset to organizations. There on your balance sheet, it's an asset. And it links to better economic performance. It is an integral part of how we do business and imperative to commercial success. So the group recognizes that our people need to reflect our customers and local community, what we mentioned before. And then they have the policy there. I want you to feel free to do a thorough research on different organizations. You go to Westpac, go to NZ, and look at companies like Woolworths and different international companies, and look at their diversity policies and ask yourself, why do they feel the need to have them? What are the benefits they are deriving? And how do they monitor those diversity policies? Are they working? How do they monitor? What does the human resources do to follow up and assess whether the diversity policy is working? This is what this whole assignment is all about. Being able to put a diversity policy in and being able to point out what are the benefits of a diversity policy. And you got to be able to, when you read these policies, some of them will actually say, this is how it's going to be implemented. Diversity policies are implemented from the beginning, from the hiring of an individual right up to the end, through training, through induction processes, and through personal development as well, and professional development. And diversity is something that starts from the top, from the CEO right up to the person at the bottom. And there are bonding sessions, and most companies now, they actually have training sessions on diversity, because departmental heads, departmental managers, and directors have to get it into their heads that diversity is really key to the success and the performance of many, many successful organizations. And if an organization ignores diversity in our present decade, in our present times, where the world is a global village, it is simply not doing themselves a favor. Because the customer base, when you look at it now, if your company is going to be internationally based and they have international branches all over the world, you got to really and accept to say, how do we deal with a diverse customer base? How do we reach that customer base that is out there in India, in China, in Africa, in the Middle East, North Americas, South Americas, and got all this plethora of understanding. So how do you going to pay attention to it? You've got to have some training, you've got to have some monitoring techniques in there to say, Are we monitoring? Are we doing what we said we'll do? So if your company, for instance, is involved in maybe products that are related to ladies, like perfumes or earrings or cosmetics, so what are kind of employees you're going to have in there? What kind of representative you're going to have there? How are your customers going to feel comfortable? You know, whom are they going to feel comfortable asking you for perfume, asking for lingerie, asking for all those things? And you've got to bear in mind, again, some of those cultural sensitivities that your other customers might have. So there's a sample there. And part of that diversity is you've got to have a workplace conduct, equal employment opportunity policy. Number one, you can't leave that one out. And you've got to have appointment role policy. And, you know, you've got to have a statement of professional practice. What is our statement? What are the things we believe in? So, for instance, CBA says, our profession is founded on very high standards of personal integrity and conduct, which requires absolute honesty. These guidelines reflect the group's core values of honesty, integrity, and trust. And then you go to occupational health and safety, flexible work arrangements, and leave policies. And, you know, now you got to say, how do they measure? Here we go, right? The measurable objectives. So the board of directors, they establish measurable objectives for achieving gender diversity and other aspects. So it's not just good enough to have a policy. You got to have a measuring, how you're going to get the metrics to ensure that you're getting this right. Compare the metrics of your market share, the demographics of your market, and then you go back to your staff and say, are we representatives of the people that we're serving? So you got to have diversity in leadership, adaptable work practices. For instance, women that have got children going to school and sort of, so how adaptable are you? How flexible are you with people that have got to pick kids, people that probably are just retained from maternity leave or retained from injury, long-term injury, you know, what sort of policies do you have? Diversity, support, and respect and inclusion. That's another sample from CBA. And so let's go back to our PowerPoint. Let's go here and say, now on the template that we're going to have to complete, here's a sample of the template, right? So the first thing we're going to do is give us an introduction. I showed you an example of CBA policy. And when you make a business case, you're going to have to find out how are you going to convince us, that's what's called a business case, convince us that the diversity policy of inclusion is really warranted. What research have you done? What is your introduction? How are you going to, you know, break the news to us? What is it that you have found that has brought this to the fore? And who are your stakeholders? You know, in short, you're talking about your clientele, you're talking about your shareholders, you're probably talking about your suppliers. And so if your suppliers are, you know, are diverse as they come. So you got to have a reflection of that. And so many organizations, they're beginning to see that diversity in the workplace is really something that cannot be ignored. And current practices, so you describe how the organization currently diversify. And, you know, how do you recruit? How do you train your people? So the way you recruit is a reflection of the policies that are put in place. The way you hire, your hierarchy at the top, your executive branch, what do they believe in? Where do they want to take the company? What are your missions? What is your values? Where is the vision? You know, it's like we are here now, where do we want to go? So your vision will be, this is where we want to go, this is where we want to become. So where you are going, definitely, obviously, that's where your clients are going. That's where your customers are going. Because if you go in a different tangent, different route where your customers are going, well, honestly, your business is not going to be a success. But for it to be a success, you've got to have to, what do they say? Follow the money trail. And who's got the money? Customer is king. is got the door. So you got to have the policy that follow it. And in your template, you got to have to specify benefits to the organization of having a diversity policy. I think we've covered quite a lot on the types of benefits that we have. And feel free to do a thorough research. A diligent student does not necessarily just rely on the material given to him or her in class, but a diligent student will go delve deeper into the material, research what other organizations are doing, research from other researchers, the work that they've done, and so that you can get to grips with the material that you're looking at and doing. We've said here, spoken in the template again, how other organizations approach diversity. We looked at CBA, how they approach it. We looked at the template there for Coca-Cola, and feel free to go research other companies. This is your opportunity to understand. You know, we spoke of Google. Go research Google and find out. Go research Microsoft. You want to look at some of the Australian companies that are very successful here and say, how have they done it Westpac? And stakeholder requirements. You know, there's a request report from stakeholders detailing the requirements for consideration in a diversity policy for the organization. So once you finish this template, right, so you're actually building a business case for a business, for your diversity policy. So once you build that business case, you take it to your management and say, well, this is what I need to do. Let's look at another template that you probably might have from there. Now, when you finish completing all these templates, you'll find, let's go back to our, let's do a new share, and we go back to here. Let's look at our assessment to ensure that we've covered all. Yes, back to our questions. We just want to make sure that we've covered everything. Just a rehash there. You got to use the template, diversity policy, which is given, and answer that, and then explain diversity policy, what it is, what are the benefits to the bank, how the policy links to business goals. So if the business goals are to achieve a particular percentage, or maybe to achieve a particular market share in a region or in an area, how will diversity help the organization achieve those goals? And as it says here, describe how two major banks address diversity. I've given you an example of CBA. You can go and look up Westpac, ANZ, so many other banks. Queensland, Bank of Queensland, Bendigo Bank. Yeah, we've got quite a plethora that you could look at and never study. And we're going to request stakeholders' requirements for diversity policy as we look at that. So as we recap, just a recap, just tell you what we need to do here when you look at it is diversity really, as I mentioned before, is the tolerance of people that do not think like you, eat like you, walk like you, maybe spell things like you, maybe they don't even dress like you, they don't look like you, they're probably older, younger. So it's that acceptance of people from different persuasions and being able to tolerate and work with them. And also, not just that, but being respectful and endeavoring to understand why they do the things they do. Because once a business understands why people in a particular culture or from a particular background do the things they do, it is then easier for the organization to tailor their products to the needs and the values of that particular ethnic group, particular demographic group, which could be young ones. Even with younger people, you find products now are being tailor-made to suit maybe the 18 to 25 age group, maybe even to suit people that are within their mid-30s, young adults. So it is all having the tolerance and understanding of values and respecting one another, and just knowing that all of us, as we live and move and have our being, we have all one goal. That one goal is to live in harmony, and as an organization, if you want to succeed, you want to get ahead, and even as an employee, and as you're growing in as students, in your future, you'll begin to work in organizations with a diverse group of people, diverse group of your of bosses and clients and suppliers and customers, and it's a beautiful world out there. And for those that have managed to have a policy of inclusion in their organizations. They are reaping the fruits through their, look at the balance sheet, look at the profit and losses that they have, and just look at their market share, and the figures and the metrics speak for themselves. So as I wind up this and conclude this diversity, this is assessment 1 and 2. In our next webinar, I'll be talking on and helping you with assessment 3 and 4. So right out for now, wish you all the best. Complete your assessment 1 and 2. If you've got any questions, give me a call or call one of your mentors, call Eden. He'll be there to pick up the call, email me and email him. And feel free to come back with any comments, any feedback, and help that you might require. Don't hesitate. The ball is in your hands. Go for it. We are right behind you. Thank you. And thank you.